those sad goodbyes will there be spoken? For time won't matter anymore. Beulah land, I'm longing for you, and someday on thee I'll stand, and there my home shall be eternal. Beulah land, sweet Beulah land. I'm looking now just across that river to where my faith is going to end inside. There's just a few more days to labor, then I will take my heavenly flight to Beulah land. I'm longing for you, and someday on thee I'll stand, and there my home will be eternal. Beulah land, sweet Beulah land. Beulah land, Beulah land, Beulah land, sweet Beulah land.
Ella Louise Hammond Foster, 84 of Greenup, Kentucky, went home to be with the Lord Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026, at UK King's Daughters Medical Center in Ashland, Kentucky. Louise was born July 5th, 1941, in Portsmouth, Ohio, a daughter of the late Edgar E. and Ruby Alice Collins Hammond. Louise was a 1959 graduate of the former McKell High School and a member of Lloyd First Baptist Church. She enjoyed quilting, sewing, and her work at the church. Ella loved her family and spending time with them.
In addition to her parents, she was preceded in death by her husband, Jack Rufus Foster, two brothers, Bill Hammond and Gene Hammond. She is survived by one son, Rusty and Sherry Foster of Lloyd, Kentucky, one daughter, Cindy McCullough of Lloyd, Kentucky, one brother, Fred Hammond of South Shore, Kentucky, 6 grandchildren, Philip and Leah McCullough, Brittany and Gerald Stambo, Timothy, Jack, and Sarah McCullough, Adam and Sarah Foster, Benjamin Foster, and Reese Foster. 10 great-grandchildren, Noah, Logan, Kaylin, Sophie, Jonah, Jackson, Lydia, Samuel, Aiden, and Grant, and a host of nieces and nephews.
is coming a day when no heartache shall come, no more clouds in the sky, no more tears to dim the eye. All is peace forevermore on that happy golden shore. What a day, glorious day that will be. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see. When I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace. When he takes me by the hand and leads me to the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. There'll be no sorrows there, and no more burdens to bear, no more sickness and no more pain, no more parting over there, and forever I will be with the one who died for me. What a day, glorious day that will be. Oh, what a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see. When I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace. When he takes me by the hand and leads me to the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. We gathered here with broken hearts, but full of love tonight. The way you held us through the years still shines a guiding light. You taught us how to laugh and dream, to stand when we fall down. And though you've gone, your love remains. It's everywhere around. Thank you, Mom, for every kiss, for every lullaby, for holding us through stormy days, for teaching us to try. And though we have to let you go, your memory carries on. We'll love you now forevermore. Thank you, Mom. Your hands were gentle, strong and kind. They showed us how to live. Your heart was always open wide. You had so much to give. And even in our darkest days, your voice will see us through. We'll close our eyes and hear you say, I'll always be with you. Thank you, Mom, for every kiss, for every lullaby, for holding us through stormy days, for teaching us to try. And though we have to let you go, your memory carries on. We'll love you now forever.
One day you'll make everything new. Jesus, one day you will bind every wound. The former things shall all pass away. No more tears. One day you'll make sense of it all. Jesus, one day every question resolved. Every anxious thought left behind. No more fear. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. One day we will see face to face Jesus. Is there a greater vision of grace? And in a moment we shall be changed on that day. One day we'll be free, free indeed. Jesus, one day all the struggle will cease. And we will see your glory revealed on that day. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. So when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. One day we will see face to face Jesus. Is there a greater vision of grace? And in a moment we shall be changed. Yes, in a moment we shall be changed. In a moment we shall be changed on that day. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. We'll sing and shout the victory.
message, I wanted us to give a time of personal reflection, thoughts, memories of Mom that anyone here may have they'd like to share with us. Could be a funny story. It could be just a thing that she had said and talked to you once, or a conversation you may have had, or anything. And I'm going to take that time, give everyone a chance if they'd like to do that now before we begin our message this morning. Anyone have anything they'd like to share this morning? Once? All right. There's a poem entitled Gone From Us that says this: Gone from us that smiling face, the cheerful pleasant ways, the heart that won so many friends in bygone happy days. A life made beautiful by kindly deeds, a helping hand for others' needs. To a beautiful life comes a happy end. She died as she lived, everyone's friend. One of my earliest memories growing up at home in the foster house of Mom was breakfast before school each day. Most often on those mornings, it was either one of my favorite cereals, or sometimes Mom would fix oats on the stove, not the packaged guys that you put the water in and nuke for 60 seconds, the ones you put on the stove. Dry, sticky, whatever, oats. Then, of course, after breakfast came Mom's routine that we had to go through each day before school. After breakfast routine that Mom had, for me, consisted of three things. Go brush your teeth, go get dressed, and then go to the bathroom and sit. You know what I mean. She said, after all, you do not want to have an accident at school. Even if you had to or not, you had to sit. Mom also had, besides that, an obsession for wellness when we were growing up. Now, I don't know about sis, but my chart at Dr. Riddle's office had to take up one file cabinet by itself. Because if Mom had any inkling that I might be sick, she would search for the thermometer. She'd give it a few shakes. Now, you know my age, we'll talk about that, all right? And then she'd have me stick it under my tongue. Now, like I said, I was a frequent visitor. And most often, when Dr. Riddle would look at me, he would say, well, you're not that sick, but to be better safe than sorry, pull down your pants, let's give you a shot. Every single time. So when Mom would stick that thermometer under my tongue, I knew there was a possibility of a trip to see Dr. Riddle. So I figured if I could just shake it down the same way that she shook it to get it started at normal, maybe I could get out of it. Trouble was, I didn't know how to read one of those things. So when I pulled it out, it usually didn't work. And in fact, I swear one time I shook it and it went up. I don't know how that happened. Besides that, there was also, Mom had her own set of home remedies for sickness. Her favorite one, for when you had a stuffy nose or a chest congestion, was an ample application of Soltis on your chest. And then a warmed up undershirt of Dad's. Warmed up by laying it on top of the floor furnace in the house. And she'd take that warm thing and put that Solstice on and put that warm shirt and warm you up, wrap you up around it, because Mom's cure-all, Solstice could do anything. Could cure you of everything. Now, because of this also over-obsession with wellness, recess at school, for me, was not an automatic thing when it came to Mom. During the fall and early winters, when 40 degrees and sunny skies meant some much-needed outside recess for me and my classmates, I was often given orders by Mom when she would either drop me off at the bus stop or at school, and I was to tell the teacher that I was supposed to stay in for recess time so I wouldn't get sick. I don't know about you all, but being the only 7, 8, or 9-year-old boy that gets to watch out the window while the rest of your class goes outside wasn't what I called fun. Just wasn't. So I would just conveniently forget to give my teacher the message. But of course, it never failed that on that day I did that, Mom would just happen to pop into school during recess time for what she called a PTA meeting. Yeah. It's almost like she didn't trust her son for some reason. Probably for a good reason, too. Discipline. Well, that was always an important part of the Foster household. Now, as I shared with you at Dad's service, Dad would always use this as his method of spanking when discipline was needed. Mom's choice of discipline, though, was the switch. I do remember on one occasion, I like to say I had been framed at school by my so-called buddy, Ronnie James, and was given a swat on the backside by my first grade teacher, Miss Holbrook. Well, at the end of the day, when the bus dropped us off, that event was not going to be brought up in the car. When Mom asked, "What happened at school today, son?" I was going to leave that part out. But what I was not counting on that day was another friend of mine by the name of Rick Robbins. When asked by his mom the same question, his answer to her was, "Well, Rusty got paddled today." Thanks, Rick. Appreciate that. I'll never forget, though, what Mom did next. She leaned her head out the window of her car, and she told Rick and her mom, "Thanks, Rick," and that I would soon be getting one at home that I had gotten at school. So when we got home, I was instructed to go to the tree by the driveway and choose my instrument of punishment. As I often mentioned also at Dad's service, Sis and I grew up in church at First Baptist Church in South Shore. From the earliest days of our lives, our Sundays would find us in Sunday school and church. I told you then about Dad's many duties at church when we were growing up, being a deacon, Sunday school director. For Mom, she loved music, and she loved teaching. Mom loved to sing. But what many people didn't know was she also was very good at playing the piano as well. Mom not only sang in the choir at First Baptist Church of South Shore, but she was often asked to sing special music. One of her favorite songs to sing was the one you heard this morning, just a few minutes ago, "Fill My Cup, Lord." And because of Mom's love for music, she desired to pass that love along to Sis and I. From our earliest recollections, I was either 5 or 6. Mom would take Sis and I to piano lessons at Mrs. Mole's house. Now, being the little brother, Sis had already started taking lessons before I started. But even before that, it was obvious to me that she was much better at the piano than I was. Not that I wasn't learning. It's just that it seemed to always come easy to Sis. And if you ever heard her play, you know why. She's good. Plus, I love sports. And as I got older and started playing baseball and basketball and not football, because Mom was a definite no on that, piano practice and playing became second or third on my list. I remember that growing up, I quit piano 2 or 3 times because baseball and basketball just took away practice times. But after a while, I would get interest again, and I would want to resume lessons. So this on again, off again of lessons went on well into my middle school years. But then as I grew up, my love affair with gospel music grew. Fell in love with a group called the Kingsmen Quartet. The Kingsmen Quartet had a piano player that just blew my mind, folks. His name was Anthony Berger. I had never seen anyone play the piano like he did. I would watch them sing, and you would swear that at any given song, he played all 88 keys. He was all over that thing. Well, that's what I wanted to learn how to do. I wanted to learn to play that way. So I asked Mom if she knew anybody, and she said, "I think I do." She found an old school friend of hers named Leroy Fox. she knew played like that at church. So she asked him as a favor if he would give me lessons, and he agreed. That man could play as well. I'll never forget the first time I sat in the bench, and he took the bench over and watched him play. The first thing I noticed was his hands. But Leroy worked at the brickyard in South Shore. He had brickyard hands. Rough, calloused, dry-looking hands. But when those hands hit that keyboard, hit those piano keys, it made heaven sing. Now, I come to find out to play that way was a little harder to learn to do that way. And I got discouraged once, but I'm thankful that Mom let me continue to take lessons one more time and learn to somewhat play like they did. As I said, Mom also loved to teach. Taught both Sunday school and Vacation Bible School. She especially loved VBS. Even in her later years, I'm talking just that 3 or 4 years, last 3 or 4 years. She often told me that if she could just physically able to do it, she would still volunteer to teach Vacation Bible School. She was that passionate about it. Now, Mom at South Shore, she never stayed in one age group very long. Meaning that whenever it came time for me to be promoted, she would promote herself to be the teacher of that class, if she could. Finally, when I got to junior boys, she got cut out. She couldn't do it anymore. But in Bible school, she just kept going. She promoting herself all the way, I think, through middle school. Kept going on. She loved Vacation Bible School. She was also very active in our ladies' WMU, Women's Missionary Union. I remember on one occasion, the ladies were meeting one morning at First Baptist Church of South Shore to pray for an upcoming spring revival. Now, typically when Mom would go do that, I would get to go to Poppy and Nanny's house and stay there while she went to these ladies' prayer meetings. But for some reason on that day, they weren't available. So I got dragged, folks, to a WMU ladies' prayer meeting. And again, for a 7-year-old boy, listening to about a dozen women pray was not high on my list for that day, or things to do. So I remember, as they all bowed their heads and began to take turns praying, they were all up in the front of the church, Chris. I remember that in South Shore there, on the piano side, there, on that front of the church, all right? And Mom was down on her knees. She was there at the front. She was on her knees praying. All the other ladies were back praying. I'm sitting right here on the stoop here of the podium of the church there. I'm right up front, you know. And if you know South Shore, it's a long church. It's a big side church, a lot of aisles. So I'm thinking, if I'm going to try to escape, that's going to be a while. So what I tried to do was wait till they bowed their heads and began to pray. And so I tried to slowly slip out of the sanctuary. I wasn't going to leave church, but my thought was if I could at least get to a Sunday school class, they may have some cookies or coloring sheets or Play-Doh or something fun to do. Well, Mom not only had her heart tuned to God that day, she also had her mom radar turned on. I only got from about seat 1 to seat 3 before she looked up, spotted me, and gave me, guys, that mom look, the granny look, that look, and that finger that said that. That's as far as I got. As if to tell me, don't even try it, mister. In fact, Mom almost always had her radar on when it came to church events. I remember this one time. It was a typical Sunday evening service at South Shore. Me and 2 of my friends, I think Tom Stevens, I forget who, maybe you were there too, Chris. 2 or 3 of us were on. We decided to sit up front that night. Parents were back there. We were up front, all right? We decided we were going to break away from our parents and sit together near the front. That guy said they had a big sanctuary. So we were about maybe 10 to 12 rows in front of any of our parents. Now things started out fine that evening. Sang a couple songs. We listened to the announcements and special music. Then it came time for the message. After about 10 minutes, as 10 to 12-year-old boys would be, we began to get a little antsy, whispering and gesturing to each other while the sermon was going on. Well, that was all it took for Mom's radar to go off. She quickly wrote down something on a small piece of paper and strategically began having other parents pass that note until it got to me. The first note that I received said this: "You better be quiet." Well, that worked for about another 10 minutes. Then a second note made its way to me. And this second note simply said, "Wait till you get home." Needless to say, I knew what was coming. I prayed for that we had a dinner after church or something, or maybe that Mom would invite the preacher over for coffee or cake or whatever, and she'd forget, but no, she didn't. When Sis got old enough to be in the youth, Dad took over driving the church bus for youth outings. Mom then got the idea that the kids needed to have a chaperone. So while Dad drove, Mom was keeping an eye on all those teenagers. I also got dragged along for a lot of those trips as well. Those were kind of fun, though. Mom had another ministry that she enjoyed, both at our time at South Shore and also here at Lloyd. And that was volunteering to drive many of our senior ladies who couldn't drive on different errands, whether it be to the beauty shop, to pay bills, to a doctor's appointment, to go to Atkins Market for groceries, or just simply to take them to church. Later on here at Lloyd, it became something both her and Dad truly enjoyed doing. When we moved our membership here to Lloyd, Mom again immediately became an active member in the choir and sang in a trio. Herself, Brother Terry Riemel, and Miss Liz James. And I bet now, just now, as Mom has gone home, that they may have joined themselves back together again and started the group back up again. Probably rehearsing the two songs they knew, The Lighthouse and Beautiful Home. She also, for many years, served as the chairperson of our benevolence committee. And although Sis and I were Dad and Mom's biological kids, there were many other kids who called her Mom. A lot of the girls were best friends of Sis, who would come over for sleepovers. Did it so much that Mom just became their second mom to them. At South Shore, there were the Everman girls. Miss Kathy Messer was one of Mom's other girls, and Susan Mullins. Susan was there last night to see Mom and visit Mom last night. Also came to see her at the hospital when she got the news. Here at Lloyd, that just continued. There were the Darnell girls and the Mowry girls. They all called Mom and treated her like a second mom. Now, when Sis and I got old enough to go out on dates, Sis, of course, sooner than me, Mom could, well, let's say, she could be difficult to deal with when it came time for boys and or girls being brought to the house. She wanted to know the date, the time, specifics of where you're going, how long you're staying, when you'll be home, yada, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, for me and her, our arguments were mostly just about curfew times. Now, for Sis, she had it more difficult. You see, Mom was always hard on the boys that came calling for Sis. We always claimed that although it was never proven, Mom that somehow had planted spies around South Shore, Portsmouth, or wherever Cindy and her date were going. But I have to confess, there was some truth for that whole spy rumor. For you see, sometimes Mom would pay me to spy on Sis and her dates. For example, I was to monitor when Sis would walk her date out to his car, how long she stayed out there before coming in and things like that. I became her lookout. Besides the things she was involved in at church, Mom also had quite a few hobbies that she enjoyed. Some of those hobbies included gardening. Mom loved her flowers. She did. I remember especially she loved her morning glories that she had at her house in South Shore. I remember one time Dad built her flower boxes in between our front porch post so she could plant all her flowers that she loved. Besides gardening, she loved to crochet and quilt. A lot of the kids have, and grandkids all have things that Mom has made over the years. Mom loved to read. One of her favorite writers was Grace Livingston Hill. Found a lot of those books that she had stored away that she loved to read. One of the things that Mom was good at, and one of her hobbies, was telling you what she thought about you. Mom was never one to hold back on things, you know, if she wanted to say something. Sometimes to her detriment. Sometimes we have to kind of, you know, pave the way and smooth things over with her. Many times I'd come in and she'd say, "You wearing that to church today?" "Yeah, why?" Or, "When's the last time you got a haircut?" And other things that Mom would say, Mom-isms. She was good at that. And one of her best hobbies that she had was talking on the phone. The phone book to Mom was her second Bible. There was the King James Version, and there was the General Telephone phone book to her. Now, it got bad when in these later years here now, you don't have phone books anymore. Phone books kind of went out of style. So when Mom needed a number and she'd have to call to get it, she'd just write it down on just about anything that was sitting near her. Napkins, bill envelopes, newspapers, magazines. She would sometimes have 8 to 10 numbers written on one letter-sized envelope. So if you went to clean, you had to check before throwing anything away just to make sure she hadn't written a number down on for somebody. But of all those stories, there was a more personal side to Mom. She loved her family. Both sides. Hammond's family, Collins, Foster family. She dearly loved her mom and dad, Edgar and Ruby Hammond. She loved her siblings. She loved everyone in Dad's great big family that he had. But that love of family took off to a new level when Mark and Cindy McCullough welcomed Philip Anthony McCullough into the world. Now, although the arrival of Philip had a funny story to it, I believe we went on Sunday when Sis went in. You went into, somewhere on Sunday, I think, Sis. And we were coming home from church, and at the house, Mark came home. Left Sis at the hospital. Mom asked where Cindy was. He's at the hospital. Why aren't you there? Gave him down the road. Isn't that, well, it's going to be hours before he's born. But she said, get yourself back to that hospital. Each new grandkid brought another layer of love from Jack and Louise Foster. Dad, well, he became Pop. Mom started out as Mamaw, but somehow along the line of grandkids, it got changed to Granny. I don't know where that switch happened. But she became Granny. And once that first grandkid arrived, other events got better as well. Birthdays became more fun, along with Christmas. Now, Christmas took a big leap in the fun department with the addition of the grandkids. And as the number of grandkids grew and the grandkids got older, the boys, and I already said the boys, I'm leaving Brittany out of this one, the boys started having a new level of fun with Granny. Now, I don't remember which Christmas it was, but whichever year it was, it all started harmlessly. The boys had volunteered after Christmas dinner that year. They were going to sort out and distribute the packages to everyone. Awfully nice of them, right? But it was not until the first gift started getting opened that the fun with Granny began. And even though Mom didn't do all the shopping anymore for everyone, she knew exactly what her and Pop had bought each of us. So on this particular Christmas, when Mark opened up a pair of ladies' pajamas, and Brittany a pair of men's socks, and myself a pair of ladies' underwear, Granny began to lose her mind. And then she just yelled at Dad. You see, Dad was in charge of wrapping all the presents, so she thought he really had messed up. And after a couple minutes of letting her get all wound up, the boys had to confess. They had schemed earlier to volunteer to distribute the gifts so they could just switch the tags on Granny and Pop's presents. And that became a tradition, the start of one that carried on every year that we were together for Christmas. But then Christmas took another love leap. When the grandkids grew up, got married, and gave Granny and Pop that first grate, a whole new level of love was made when Noah McCullough came into the world. As Dad and Mom grew older, we convinced them that with health issues beginning to appear more frequently and with them being in South Shore while Sis and I were here in Lloyd, that it was easy for everyone if they could just move to Lloyd and be close to us. I mean, after all their doctors were up here at Bellefonte. Their church was here, and most all of us were here. So they agreed, and after an extensive search, and the boys know how Pop searched for months and months and months, seemed like, for a modular home that was just perfect, we moved Mom and Dad's new home up to Lloyd next to us. One thing that Mom and Dad enjoyed once they moved to Lloyd was taking evening drives. Didn't have to be very far, sometimes just to the Locks and Dam or to the Greenup City Park to feed the ducks. Other times, Dad would just find a rural road he hadn't been on for a while, and they'd just get on it and drive just to see where it would come out at. But as time continued for both, Mom's health never was great, but walking and moving around kept declining due to her weight and a bum knee that she never had replaced. Then a couple years ago, she snapped her ankle trying to get out of the car one evening. It truly was a minor miracle. The doctor was able to actually put it back together. But even though she was able to regain some mobility, she was always fearful of it breaking again. For several years before the ankle, Mom had a caregiver to help her get changed each day, dressed and fed. Sis, for most of the time, would get her changed and ready for bed each night. And after a while, Sherry or Brittany or I began to help as well. Dad had a long-term diagnosis of COPD for many years. Early on, it didn't bother him so bad. He learned, when he could go out and not go out. But up until that last year, he still planted a garden, still hoed and fertilized it until harvest time, mowed our yards each week as well. But then came that fateful Sunday. Dad had been having some breathing issues that seemed to be lingering and not getting any better. Finally, on Sunday morning, Sis convinced him to get checked out at the ER at King's Daughters. With it being church day, she sent me on to church while she had him checked out. If you were here, perhaps you remember that morning. I was about 10 to 15 minutes into my sermon when I noticed a lot of commotion going on in the sound room between Brittany and Sherry. Finally, Brittany began to make her way up to the aisle to about that first row. I look over and she looks at me and says, "You need to leave right now. Something's happened." So we immediately dismissed church and I charged up to the hospital. Dad had a heart attack while in the ER. Wasn't doing very well to begin with. But after a few minutes, miraculously, his heart began to go again. Later found a 100% blockage, and his widowmaker was the culprit. But even after getting the stent put in, it never really got any better for him after that morning. So that added a kind of a new stress of now having to take care of both Mom and Dad. Both Sis and I had other medical issues going on ourselves, and we made the difficult decision to move Mom into Wortland Manor nursing home. Now, at first, she wasn't too happy about it. Dad understood. I don't know if he was tremendously happy either, but he understood why. But after a change of roommates and maybe a change of view, Mom began to adapt and she began to adjust. Started learning the residents' names and found some friends there to hang around with. And she even told me that she had gotten the opportunity just a few times while talking with them to witness to them about the Lord, to share Jesus Christ with them. Church became harder to get them to, so any opportunity we had to get one or both of them here was cherished. As you know, Dad became weaker over the spring and the summer last year. And in mid-August, he departed this world to become and to meet his Lord. This past Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday were Mom's two last trips to Lloyd. Sis brought her down to her house on Palm Sunday to have Sunday dinner with the grandkids. And then on Easter Sunday, I took her to church here at Lloyd. When I wheeled her into the church, her eyes lit up. Easter Sunday not only brought a big crowd, but it also brought several of her old friends back to church as well. She got to see Miss Wilma Remo, who she hadn't seen forever, Miss Vicki Atkins, and Miss Phyllis Ratliff all got a chance to chat it up with Mom that day. After church, we called in Easter dinner at Bob Evans, and Mom and I went and picked it up, and for old time's sake, I took her down to the Ohio side of the locks and dams to take in the sights and sounds from that side of the river. See, that was one of those places that Mom and Dad enjoyed going. Just sitting and eating and listening to the handiwork of God. That was April 5th. And on Friday, April 17th, the care staff at Wortland could not get Mom roused up. Both her blood sugar and her blood pressure was extremely low. She just called me to tell me they were on their way to the ER. I just happened to already be there visiting Miss Vicki, so I went down to the ER to meet her. Blood work came back to tell us she was already septic. Likely cause was probably a UTI. And Mom had already told Sis and Phil that she did not want any extreme measures done anymore because she's missing Dad. So we talked, Sis and I did, and decided that we'd give her a chance to see if antibiotics would turn her condition around. But a day later, on April 18th, she was not better, even worse in some areas. So we decided that her wish would be that she wanted us to do to go on comfort care. All the family was called in, and one by one, everyone came in to see her. The doctors had told us that once they took her off the antibiotics and the blood pressure medications, that it wouldn't be very long. So on Saturday evening, after everyone had been there, all the medications were removed. As I said earlier, though, Mom was always one to say and do whatever she wanted on her schedule. So Saturday, folks, became Sunday, which became Monday, which became Tuesday. On many occasions during those days or nights, we thought she was getting close to stepping over into heaven. But each time, she'd take another breath and continue on with life. We joked amongst ourselves that Mom was making Dad wait on her one more time before going on to meet him. That came around 3:30 on Wednesday morning when God and Mom decided it was time to leave this earthly world behind. So, Mom, here we are today. Your church family has wished you well on your arrival at your new eternal home. Your friends have done so as well. You and Dad are together again. You've been reunited with many of your longtime friends like Bob and Elma, Harry and Margaret. You've reunited with many of your family, both yours and Dad's. And I truly know, Mom, you're enjoying these days right now. But now, we, your biological family, are here today. And we wonder to ourselves, what's next? Yeah, we're left with a lot of memories, a lot of good memories, a lot of fun memories. But what do we do now? What do we do while we wait to see you and Dad again? After thinking about that question, Mom, I believe in your memory. What we should do is exactly the same thing that Jesus told his disciples to do before he returned to his Father. And that was why we are here, to tell others how they can become a Christian, to tell others how they can receive Christ into their heart, to tell our family members that are lost, to tell our neighbors, tell our co-workers, and this community that you so loved about the love of God that you and Dad both had. So today, Mom, we promise as a family that we will strive to live a life that would be pleasing to you, to Dad, and to the God you both loved and served, and now are getting to see and worship face to face. There's a poem that I read at every funeral that I've ever done. It's a poem that reflects on life and how you live that life. I'd like to read it to you right now. The poem was entitled simply, The Dash. It says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was that dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth. And now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars or the house or the cash. What matters is how we live and how we love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that still can be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in your lives like you've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, when your life's actions are rehashed, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? Mom, I can truly and 100% safely say you lived an outstanding and wonderful and beautiful dash. Let's bow our heads as we close today with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, I ask you this day to reach down your hand of comfort on all of us here today, Lord. Now and for the days to come as well. Father, I ask you to provide your presence and strength to each of us. Father, I ask you to wrap your loving arms around us these upcoming days and weeks. God, I ask you that you flood each of our hearts with all the wonderful memories of Mom. Times of celebrations, laughter, all the memories that bring a smile to our hearts. God, finally this day we're thankful. Thankful for those of here that are like Mom, that have professed and placed their faith in your Son, Jesus Christ. Today is not truly a day of goodbye. It's simply see you later. See you later, family. See you later, daughter. See you later, son. See you later, grandkids, great-grandkids. See you later, my friends. Father, I ask all these things this morning in your precious, wonderful name. Amen.